Welcome to today's episode of Scrolling to Death. Today we are joined by Liz, who is a mom of 4 living in Orange County, California. And on Scrolling to Death, it's important to us to talk directly to parents and hear their stories around social media. And sharing these experiences is one of the most important ways to help other parents think critically about their decisions with social media and screens for their kids. We asked Liz to share her experience with social media and the decisions she made for her children's social media access. So again, the purpose of these discussions is just to foster conversation and new ideas. We don't have the answers to what is the ideal time frame and way to give your child a phone or social media, but by creating spaces for these conversations and sharing these stories, we can help equip parents with enough info to make the safest choice for their families. So before we jump in, Liz, to your child's experience with social media and screens, I'd love to ask you about your personal experience with social media. Ashley and I jumped on Facebook and MySpace right when they launched. We were just starting college. So what did your experience look like starting using social media and all of that?
Right. Well, Facebook, social media came after I had already finished college. I'm a parent at this point when it came on the scene. And I am going to be fully transparent. I don't have a ton of experience in social media. From the beginning, I chose not to engage with it. There's many reasons that led to that, but I have really not. I can remember my husband saying, "Oh, they have this thing called Twitter coming out. You need an account." And he was the one that was trying to get me to kind of participating, engage. And for some reason, even back then, I just wasn't comfortable with the platform. For various, like I said, various reasons internal struggles that I had, that I just didn't feel comfortable being a part of that whole world. So I really have not engaged heavily on social media. I've done it because of my job. I've had to learn it, and I've done it somewhat. But I don't engage heavily in it, and I never have. And so that's my story,
Liz,
which I know is unusual in this world that we live in.
Yeah. But it also sounds like you had an intuition, of like, this doesn't jive with me. Like this, I don't know about this.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, what it was for me is it's really embarrassing, but I struggled with vanity, and I felt like this would be something that fed something that I already saw was a struggle and that I didn't want to fall more into. So I just chose, and also I come from a history of addiction in my family, and I saw, for me, this type of thing could be something that was all consuming for me. So I just from the beginning just decided to have a boundary with myself, just a personal choice, that I wasn't going to make this a huge part of my life. So
I love that.
That's my story with it.
I know. I am like so in awe of you right now, of just that self-awareness that you had, and just really like knowing like, okay, this, I can fall into the trap of this, and I'm going to set a boundary right from the get-go.
But Liz, that's so interesting, because it is addictive, and it would have fed into any vanity issues, and it would have been a problem for you. And you really saw
hugely.
that.
Yeah. I did. I recognize it. It's kind of surprising. But I just saw that from the beginning. I could see the temptation. Even like when I went to try to do my first post, I was so insecure about what I was going to say, how I was going to present it, how would it be received. It was somewhat paralyzing. And so I just thought, this isn't worth it for me. I cannot imagine a lifetime of that. And so I just was, no.
Wow.
Are you loving this, Nikki? Like,
yeah,
are you loving this? Like,
I'm
loving
can you see my face? I'm a unique individual. I am very unique. That is not for everybody. That was just my story.
That sounds like a superpower to me, right?
Where do you think that came from? Like, where did that strength come from?
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes from my faith, because I do have a faith background. And I think because I was working through just my own, in my faith, I just you recognize what are those potential stumbling blocks that can be for you, and pride and vanity is one of them. And I just saw this as such a beacon of like, this will tick every box that I am trying so hard to be self-aware and work on, that I really feel like for me, it was my faith. It was the Lord who kept me from like fully giving into that, because I easily could have. I think being hyper aware, coming from a family of addiction, always being hyper aware for me and what I've walked through my journey of like, what is a potential that could be all consuming for me? What is a potential addictive space for me that I could fall into? And I've done well in some areas, I haven't done well in other areas because I just know that that's a part of my makeup.
Right. So what happened when you had your kids? Were you drawn, you know, a lot of people when they have kids, they want to show those kids off right away. And so did you have any of those feelings? I did too.
Yeah. I know this is a unique space. I'm a unique individual. I felt like it was exploiting my kids if I did that. And so I think you could see it as definitely like, if I was being concerned for my family, I'd be like, oh, I want to show my family, my kids. I want them to have access. I didn't see it that way. I felt like I was letting the world have access, and I just I was private. I wanted to keep those moments private. And so, and I didn't want, I think because I'm in ministry and I've been in ministry for a really long time, it's almost like you're already in a fishbowl. I didn't want my family to be in that fishbowl as well. And I think you can easily become that. And that's like not their choice. That's my choice. Right. And so I just don't want to put that on them. So, and that's not to say my husband does do limited social media. So he has done the post, and I would tell people, if you want to see something, it's something we would talk together. What are we going to post? I'm going to post this. Okay. He always asks, is this okay? All of that. So we did have one family member posting things, but it was so nice because it was collaborative. We always decided on what would be posted, what wouldn't be posted. And so we just kept it limited. That was just our choice as a couple.
And as they got older, I wonder, did you think to ask the kids permission when they got a certain age on what you could post, or did you just continue sort of making that decision between you and your husband?
We did. I mean, I think that is so wise today, now that everything's coming out and everything. I think nowadays we kind of all talk, but usually it's not if you're going to be in the picture, you have to ask, are you going to post this? That's typically what they'll say. Are you going to post this? And if he says yes, they might say no, and then we would honor that. Right. But I think that is a really good idea to ask your kids, because I think that it is, you're putting an image out, you're cultivating an image for them that they might not want. So I do think that is being a respectful parent and mindful of your kids. I think it is important to do. So it's been a good awareness thing, even for me in this recent year, it's come out how important it is to dialogue with your kids about that.
Yeah. What was it like for you, Liz, to not give your kids access to social media? Because I'm sure when they, got to be elementary, middle school, or and high school, they saw all their friends have it. What was that like for you and your husband when I'm sure they came home? I mean, I'm assuming, but I'm sure they came home and said, Mom, Dad, I want this. And why can't I have it?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. We were those parents. I would say we were those parents. It's super hard because if you're in church, everything runs off the Instagram. School now, a lot of things only run off Instagram or different social media platforms. So to stay informed, you need to have they've made it very difficult not to have some form of social media. It wasn't as much when my now 25-year-old, when she was in high school, that wasn't as much the case. There was still a lot of communication via email, flyers, that kind of thing. I think as my last daughter, who just graduated last year from high school, literally ASB only communicated via Instagram or social media. So, and that presents a challenge for a parent, because you don't want your kid to be uninformed, and you feel bad if they're uninformed. I think we did get a lot of, you don't understand, I'm missing out. This is the only way my friends communicate. You're really doing me a disservice by not allowing me access. So we did get a lot of negative feedback regarding our choice.
And
How
you
did you
waited,
help?
That was
and sorry, and just to clarify, you waited until they were 18. Like they did not get social media until
pretty
they were
much.
18.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we just really felt strongly. I don't know if that will, I don't know how the platform's going to evolve and change. I'm trying to really ask and make people aware, schools, all that, please continue to do emails. Please don't stop doing email communication,
Yeah.
communicating in different ways and different platforms, because I think as more and more parents become aware of the challenges and the dangers, that they're going to want other forms of communication than just social media. But that I think is going to take that ship turns so much. I think it's going to take a while before we kind of course correct and have other options of communication. But we held to that standard. We just felt like we are doing this just for your protection. We really want to be able to protect you from things that you might not even be aware of, and we would have conversations of what that would look like and why. And then when they were 18, they kind of, you can't control that anymore. They get that choice. So, and we kind of, and it's funny because we went from two extremes, from nope to like, you're 18. It's now you have hopefully all the tools you need to manage it well, so it is kind of two extremes.
Yeah. And well, social media allows kids as young as 13 to sign up without parents' permission. So was there any sneaking around trying to sign up for it behind your back that you were aware of?
Not that I was aware of, not to say that wasn't attempted.
Right.
So my husband tried to monitor all of that. We do have like the blockers on phones, and we did have a lot of parental controls on our devices that we have utilized throughout the years.
Yeah. So so you gave them a phone at some point. They were driving and things like that. What was it, an iPhone or was it one of the KidSafe phones? What did you use?
We use iPhone because we felt like iPhone has really good parental controls. In fact, it really does. And so we've utilized iPhones the entire experience. So, at first this was to their embarrassment. At first it was flip phones. And then
yes,
I love
flip phones, please.
That was the first. And then it transitioned to an iPhone when they were older.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Me and my husband
had very, very strong parental controls on like even Wi-Fi access, that kind of stuff. I mean, like I should say browser access. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Me and my husband are all like, oh, flip phones first. For sure. It's going to be the flip.
Yeah.
And we're bringing it back.
I'm sure they would have stories of being very embarrassed.
Oh, wow.
Well, in these I've been reviewing that phones companies that label themselves kids safe, and they market to as young as 8 years old. And they're just Samsung phones. They look like a normal phone. I have two over here, but they are really stripped down. And companies like Gab Wireless and Pinwheel and Bark, they kind of partner with Samsung, and they offer these kids safe phones. And it's been interesting. Great. It's great, except I don't know why a kid needs a phone. I'm having a hard time with that. So we're going to get into more dialogue. I want to speak to someone at one of these companies. Like, what do we think a kid needs a phone for? And anyway, but I think
I can tell you from a parental standpoint, because we have like our oldest daughter, she didn't get one until she was 16, right? We waited so long. And then, but I think as your kids, with me working full time, and there was just a little bit of an anxiousness with other kids as they were younger. They needed to know, you're coming to get me, right? It was like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we did, to address some of that, to help with some of that, we did go a little younger. So that they could feel that comfort, like, no, I'm coming to get you, where we've got a plan. Yeah. You're safe. Yeah. It's all good. Okay. To address some of those issues. Because yes, I did feel like you really shouldn't need one till you're high school, but we've kind of
and that's, we're not Ashley
on that.
Yeah, and Ashley and I aren't there yet. Our kids are all under 8, so. It's like, and these kids safe phones have no internet browser and no social media. So that's great. But they also have like those watches, these Gab watches and things that we're going to look into, just to call your mom. And so your mom knows where you are, mom and dad know where you are. So it's great that they're coming out with products to help parents ease their kids into getting a full blown smartphone.
Yeah. But you guys being who you are, I wonder about like the younger ages. Does that mean that they're not able to, in their brains, socially develop where they don't need to be so tethered to us? Does that make sense? Like sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, like they're always wanting that safety net, and I'm like wondering, is that a good thing? Is that a potential challenge for them to not be as anxious older because we're constantly saying, "No, we're here for you. We got you. We got you." I don't know. There's something to think about. Now that
Sorry,
I've
Liz,
done
it
it,
broke up
but
a
I'm
little
just
bit.
curious. Oh,
Repeat that
sorry.
last part, Liz. It broke up just at the end.
I'm just wondering if, because I did it too, like I've done it too,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is that something that's also feeding the anxiety issues that we're seeing in kids, is that we make them know we're right there, even in school, we've got you, we're going to give you that. We're not giving them that ability to process in their brains that they've got this, they can do this, they can process through it on their own. I don't know.
Right.
It's just a question. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering
Well, I think in a lot of
because of what
teens,
we're seeing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of teens are feeling surveilled. Their parents are reading everything they're putting out. My, how should I say, a mom friend of mine, her son's friend has one of the watches, and the mom on this watch can tune into the watch at any time and hear what's going on around her kid. So she can hear what's going on in school. And my mom friend is like, so this mom could, if I have this kid over for a play date, she could be tuning in and hearing everything. Not that there's anything to be concerned about, but it's just like the privacy barriers. There's no privacy anymore. And that kid at some point is going to understand that, just takes one time with mom being like, I heard you say this bad word to your friend or something, for him to constantly know that someone's listening to me.
Yeah. Something feels like that's going to have long-term effects that are not good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I just see like there's this two groups of anxiety, right? Like the kids are just growing more anxious. And then I do see the more helicopter parent too. And I think they just both feed into each other as well.
Yeah.
They kind of play into each other.
And at our kids' age, I am a fan of independent play, and just letting them figure things out. We only use the TV at night for like an hour, and they don't have iPads. So they either find something to do together creatively, or they all separate and do their own things. And for me, that's really important, that to let them be bored and let them figure out how to bide their time. And that's where the creativity happens. And when you are blocking that creativity with a screen, the damage that it can do to the kid's brain and physical health is really not great.
Yeah.
So let's get into, you mentioned that you did not give your kids social media access until they were 18, until they were adults. How do you feel like that decision affected their transition to adult use of social media?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's been, there's been frustration. Like, why didn't you let me? That doesn't make sense why you guys were so overprotective with it. I think that there's been, but I do see that it's becoming something that all my kids really love and engage with a lot. And so I don't feel bad that we waited. I can see the argument of how to use it responsibly, because it is something that is it is built to be engaging and all consuming, right? For any one of us. And I can see how all of them are tempted within that sphere with it. And I don't know, I'd love to dialogue with a parent who was able to kind of coach their kids in its use and limits and all of that, because I think that would be a great thing to learn as a parent, because I can see that benefit, because with anything, we as parents, we are to be coaching and preparing our kids for life, right? With anything that they use. And I have seen with other things, when you're super restrictive, when you're super no, how then they don't know how to engage with that when they're older. They just don't have the tools in the toolbox to do that. So I can see where we kind of missed a responsibility there to help them get the tools in the toolbox to know how to navigate this well. We were always very honest. I really believe you have to be so honest with your kids and not try to hide things or manipulate or twist things. Just be super honest as to the why. We were just always upfront and honest why we felt the way we did, and why we weren't going to allow it and we weren't going to hide it. But I can see where maybe we did miss out on giving them some really good tools to that, because it's not going away. It's not going away.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what tools did we resource them with? We probably didn't do that very well. And I have to own that. So
You
now they're
made the
just
best
having to learn to
decision.
navigate themselves.
Yeah, I just think your
Yeah.
intuition was right on though with the dangers of letting kids have access. And if I could ignore some of this, I would be like, nope, my kids are not getting on there until they're 18. That's sort of my instinct too. But I do, and we've been educating ourselves on this for like years now, Ashley and I, and
Yeah.
I do understand now after all the research that they do need to have like a dripped in introduction to these
Yeah.
platforms. I got rid of Instagram in 2020 and didn't have it for 3 years and felt amazing about it. But now having a business, I have to have it. So if one of if one of our children has a business where they have to market themselves,
Right.
it's part of life. And with over half the population active on it, like if you want to be engaging in certain things or have a business that's marketed online, you have to have it. So figuring out the best way to introduce it in a safe way. It's hard for me because the tech companies are serving up inappropriate, harmful content. So I just don't trust it yet. And I just feel
know.
grateful that
And
our
these
kids are at the age they are.
Yeah, well, and kids, their brains are developing to their 25, right? They
Right.
don't really know how to
Right.
manage mentally what's coming at them, how to process that, how to really
Yeah.
navigate that space really well. And so I think there's no limit on the other end. There's like only us trying to limit and figure out how to help them navigate it. And so that's what's the challenge, I think. And then I think I wrote this in my summary as I was processing and sitting through, as you guys were asking me to like, why did you do what you did? And I was thinking, well, because of my addiction history, it's like, do I want to give my kid a drug? Like, here, I'm going to teach you how to be really responsible with this drug,
Right.
I wouldn't do that with any sort of narcotic. I just wouldn't, because I wouldn't know if they would, become full blown drug addicts. I wouldn't even want to tempt him or trust it. I think that's where my mindset was when it comes to social media, because I could see the addiction pattern with it and the all consuming pattern with it. And I feel like it is so self-promotion driven. And then with the faith background element, we just don't want to be all about ourselves, feeding ourselves in every aspect. And I think that it is a tool that can be so self-consumptive. But as you said, I wrestle with, could we have given some tools in the toolbox? I think we could have.
Let me ask you this, Liz. Let me ask you this. What tools do you think, you would have, because absolutely you wanted to protect your children. And what do you think the balance then was? What do you think maybe some tools that you would have liked to have given them during that time?
Yeah, I think helping them understand what is good for your soul, what is not good for your soul. Like when you see something that comes at you that you can tell this isn't good for your soul, you turn it off. Learning how to turn things off, how to okay, I know this isn't good for me. I need to walk away from this. I need to shut this down. Learning how to provide limits to yourself. I think what's been really hard for me as a parent is teaching my kids limits with it. I just really, honestly, even now, it's such a struggle. I know there's such great research out there. Put your phones away at this time and put it in the closet and all that. That's not that easy. It just really isn't, especially when so much schoolwork's done on a digital device. There's just a lot happening on a digital device. Kids want to it has become so much of their social network. They want to stay connected to their friends or connected with it. It makes them feel connected with people and community. So it gets more and more challenging, especially the older they get, the more they use it. So I think trying to teach them, why are limits good? How do we limit ourselves? What does that look like? And really giving them, I think what's super important about parents is you have to give kids the why. If they don't have the why and they don't understand the why, it doesn't make sense to them and they will not They're like, forget it. No, I don't want,
Right.
I don't believe you. I don't want, you're just
Yeah.
telling me a rule to have a rule. You have to give
Right.
them the why do we limit ourselves? Because your brain can't rest. You have no space to think, there's different things you can
Yeah.
walk through with your kids. I think we could definitely have been better about that and really taught them those kind of things as they were growing up.
I love that. And that just really speaks to what we're doing on this podcast is really helping parents with the why,
Yeah.
and the education behind social media and screens and the tech companies and all of that.
Yeah.
Because it can be super overwhelming to start from scratch and be a parent and be like, how do I make this decision? What decision do I make? How do I make it? How do I communicate it to my kids with confidence? And so one thing that I'm prioritizing is like a family tech plan that guides parents with
I love
specific
that.
questions around how to make decisions on this. And it is the whole goal, like Ashley said, of this podcast to bridge the gap between what's all the data and all the experts saying, and then let's give you that in a summarized version to parents, and then they can take that information and make whatever decision they feel is best for their families.
Yeah.
And
I think that's really good, a family tech plan. I think that's a great idea. Because one of the things too that I've noticed with my kids and everything is not being able to know and to understand what is true information and what is false information. Because everything that comes on social media is presented as this is truth. And so it's truth. And so if you want to look this way, this is the truth to get there. If you want to be seen this way, this is the truth to get there. And I think for our kids, those are besides politics and all that, I think for kids, it's wanting to be loved, accepted, and look a certain way. And so they belong to the collective. And so it's like all of those truths that are coming at them, and a lot of them is such misinformation. It's not even healthy or good for them, but they think, no, this is going to be good for me. I think that is, one of the things as parents, we have to be so equipped with knowing how do we help them navigate that space? Because we're all so influenced. We are all so influenced. And so it's hard to navigate what's coming at you as knowing, is this true? Or is this good for me? I don't know.
Oh yeah. And that's really difficult for kids and teenagers to decipher. Is
Even
this
adults.
good?
Yeah.
Is this good for me or is this not good for me? Especially on a platform that is so enticing and attractive. And me and Nikki were just talking about how like they absolutely use psychology to make it look like it's truth, to make it more fear-based. So it just like keeps you scrolling, keeps you looking at it. Hey, Liz too, I have a question. I know you've been in ministry for quite some time. You've worked with families, you've worked with kids, and especially having your own kids. Have you seen any, or my question is like, hold on, I'm trying to get the question. Have you seen any issues, or any themes with your own kids or even with the kids in ministry that they struggle with social media?
Good question.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to you about this, Ashley. One of my biggest concern is for girls and the health and wellness that comes through social media. I feel like it is a message that is driven to our girls, but I think even boys are now falling into this as well.
Absolutely.
I need to have that 6-pack. I need to have the 8-pack, all of that. All of these kids are getting that constant message of health and wellness and the extremes they do to get there. And everybody has a different body type. Health, I really feel that a lot of these platforms are not addressing really what is healthy. It's more of a look as opposed to a general act of nutrition or health. It's a look we're trying to achieve. It's not how do I step into health? It's how do I look this way? How do I get this? How do I achieve this? And I see it so much in kids and teens, and they're really mainly in teens, how much they're struggling with body image, and that creates its own anxiety, its own compromise, its own challenges. And I think all of us, even parents, we're counting macros, we're doing this. I mean, I was just I was looking for work, and guess what was coming up? Okay, because I'll be fully transparent. I'm 50.
Yeah.
So all of these ads were coming up on how I could lose weight at 50 and what I should be doing, these new wall exercises. It was this ad over and over again about these 15-minute wall exercises. I'm like, how did it know that I was like feeling a little insecure about like all of this stuff?
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, and it was ad after ad after ad about how to get fit and look skinny at 50. And so I just thought that was so fascinating, and how, and then so that message is going into my head. Even in that 5 minutes, it was over and over again. I'm not thin enough. I need to get that app. That app is my answer.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie. I found myself going on that app. That is how
for sure
influential these things are. And I picture that on a teen level, on a kid level, and how consuming and how we are drawn to that. It just sucks us all in. It makes us go to the extremes. It's not valuing us as a person. It's not seeing who we are as people, our hearts, what we really need. It's just looking at us as a commodity. And how do we get you to buy our product, be the way we think you should look? It's very challenging. And so I think of that on a teen level, receiving that, not understanding how their brains are developing, and the damage that can do to their peace of mind. Kids just lack peace. They just lack peace because it's never enough. It's never enough. We don't have that space. There used to be, when you didn't have social media, you had space to just be your own, to be on your own, to kind of make your own thoughts, your own ideas. Well, now you have a device telling you every day what your thoughts, what everything you should be thinking, should be doing, should be acting. And you just don't have any space to cultivate who you are as a person. And I just see that as such a challenge for teens and for parents navigating it.
I was on a webinar this morning by the Issue One organization, and one of the organization I really like, they're called the Center for Countering Digital Hate, and they do research, they pull research on the platforms, on all the tech platforms, and they constantly get sued by Elon Musk and all these platforms for revealing this concerning data. But they did, I just told Ashley about this study, but I want to share it with you. His group, Center for Countering Digital Hate, they set up new TikTok accounts as 13-year-old girls in a bunch of different countries. So they wanted to see what TikTok would serve to these girls. So they set up accounts in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. And all they did was briefly pause on some videos about body image and mental health, and then click like. That's all they did. And then they wanted to see what would get served to them. And within 2.5 minutes, TikTok recommended suicide content. And within 8 minutes, recommended content related to eating disorders. So what they're doing is feeding on that anxiety and those issues that the teen is experiencing. And then it wants them to feel more anxious because that's going to keep them on the platform trying to find whatever they're looking for. But it is scary how right you are that the tech companies are there for profit. They're not looking out. In fact, mental health is like at the bottom of their list. It's not even on their list when it comes to supporting our kids and our teenagers in their experiences on social media. It's very scary.
Well, even on the mental health side, they allow videos to be promoting things that are not even good for their mental health, but it's couched in, no, this is how you handle this situation if you're suffering from this mental health disorder. And that's, I think, very dangerous for kids. I think it's creating broken relationship. I think it's not equipping them with what they really need to navigate relationships well, because everything they get is in a minute soundbite or a 2-minute soundbite, and they don't really understand full context, conflict resolution, all of that. They're getting a clickbait of a short amount of information to go, okay, I'm going to handle that situation like that. That seems like that sounds good to me. I'm going to do that. And then it can relate in broken relationship. And it just makes me sad. It makes me sad for kids. I have seen my own experience with what I've, in the world I live in, just body dysphoria, disordered eating. It is, I think, on the rise. I think a lot of parents are not really in tune with it or even understand the damage that is happening to our kids and teens with disordered eating, because we too, as adults, are falling into it. And so,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
and I think that it is a dangerous road and a dangerous path that I see that social media is really cultivating among teens,
Absolutely.
especially.
And what I was just thinking about what your example was before about looking at like the ab and the ab workout and the wall sit, the wall exercises. And I was just thinking
Yeah.
about what happened was you were like looking and you might have just looked at it for maybe a couple seconds.
Not
Yeah.
And
even
it
probably
just
like,
not even
yeah,
thinking, but
right.
you probably just looked at it for a couple seconds, right? And it was the algorithm, it was the social media algorithm to
Yeah.
go, oh, she likes that. Because compared to all the other stuff, she has looked at this maybe 1 or 2 seconds more. So we're going to feed you more of that. And if you think about a teenager who, again, teenagers are learning their identity. They're struggling with self-esteem. They're trying to find a sense of belonging and acceptance and even acceptance with themselves. If they're looking on social media and they see someone who is skinnier or prettier or whatever, maybe they look at it for maybe 1 or 2 more seconds more. Maybe it catches their eye 1 or 2 more seconds. And guess what? The social media algorithm will feed them more of those same pictures. So what do you think then a teenager is thinking? They're thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm just getting bombarded by these pictures. And why don't I look like that? Then the comparison starts setting in. And then it just has this domino effect that could just really start, um, just chipping away at their self-esteem and their self-worth. Now we're getting even deeper self-worth, right?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's stripping their identities. They're not even able to
Yeah.
form their own identities because their identity is being formed by what they're receiving through the social media feeds. And that is going to be really challenging as they come into adulthood. And I think why we're seeing such a rise in anxiety, because they're not able to really form their identities. Their identities are being formed by outside sources, and
Even their parents, what the
it's
parents are
really
sharing about them.
yeah. And that's
And
very unique to this culture. It's very unique. It's a unique space that we're in trying to figure out. And we're also desperate as parents going, why are they so anxious? Why? And I think a lot of it is we're reaping what we sow. We're like, oh,
yeah,
this is why.
right. And
Yeah.
so I want to talk about mirroring behavior. So you were able to stay strong and, this is our decision as a family. You don't get social media. Look, I'm not even on social media. How did, did your kids ever go to your husband and be like, well, you're on social media and you share us on social media, so why can't we share ourselves? Was that ever something that you dealt with?
That's a good question. I don't feel like we did. We dealt
Okay.
more with the pressure of like, just let us have it. Like
Yeah.
they maybe amongst themselves, they didn't, or even with my husband individually, but
Yeah.
not, I don't ever remember really addressing that as a whole.
Okay.
So I can remember my son one time giving me a call and just saying, I really, now that he's over 18, I really feel that you should let one of my younger kids have social media. I think that you're really causing damage. And I explained to him, I said, I want you to know why we made this decision. Maybe you don't remember, you're aware that this child was bullied through social media and the effect that caused. And we just know what bullying on social media does to the brain, to all that it did to even this kid that just really struggled because of just the cruelty that can happen. And that was from another kid. This happened as a kid. Our kid did not have social media. Actually, it was a friend who made us aware of it. And so we were able to find it. We contacted Instagram, and I will say this, we contacted Instagram and they immediately took it down, which I appreciated.
Oh.
We didn't know how hard that was going to be, or when it's something like that, they were very responsive and took it down immediately. But it was already circulated.
Damage is done.
Damage is done. And that's from a kid who created a false account that the parent wasn't aware of. Wow. And how fast that can happen, how easy that can happen, how cruel that is,
Yeah.
and I don't fault that kid. I think the kid just had no idea the consequence, the real consequence or the ramification of that act. Because like I said, they're a kid, their brains are developing. They have no idea what their actions that day, what it was going to have long term. Because
Sure.
it's really hard for kids to think that way. And so, and I think that really made us hold our ground even more. That whole walking through that was like,
Absolutely.
yeah, no.
Were there
So
any other kids?
you could argue it the other way.
Yeah.
Know, but that's how we felt.
Were there any other kids in their circles that weren't allowed social media?
There's been a couple, not too many in our world, have I noticed. I feel like I'm now starting to see a trend, definitely, where more parents are more protective. But at that time, it seemed like we were more the outliers. We were not the norm. I think as more research is coming out, I think more and more parents are becoming aware and are saying, yeah, no.
Right.
Liz, and I want to ask you this, like, what was it like to be the outlier? I think me and Nikki have talked about this before on previous episodes, and it could be really tough being the outlier or being like that parent that is just doing like something atypical, or that's not going the norm, right? You're not doing the norm. So what was that like for you?
It has, I mean, there's a couple things. One, even me not social media. There's like, if I'm not doing social media, it comes with a consequence. It means I don't know when my friend's mom passes away because I'm not getting that immediate notification. And I'll go up and I'll say, oh, how's your mom? Well, she passed away. How did you not know? And then I feel horrid, So there are the negative consequences of not being in the know 24/7. So I feel like that was really hard for my kids too. And then I would feel bad. Yeah, I'm sorry you weren't aware of that. I'm sorry you did not know that. So when I felt that responsibility, that was painful and that was hard. Yeah. But I still had to say, what am I responsible for as a parent? That other parents aren't responsible for my kids. I'm responsible for my kids. And I have to do, and I have to do this in conjunction with my husband. We had to be a team. If we weren't a team on this, I think it would have been a whole lot harder. Right. But we were so unified on this that we had to say what is going to be for our kids, what we feel is going to be for their best. And we just held to that. And we held to it as a team. And so there were painful moments, there were hard moments, there were uncomfortable moments, all those things. But we just felt so unified in our decision that it just made us hold our ground. And there's probably, there's a little bit of a challenge in me too. So that probably made it a little bit easier. But I think also what prepared me, I did a lot of different things. Like I did homeschool for many years. And that was when a lot of people weren't. And I got comments all the time about that. Yeah. Now that's the new trend and everybody's doing it, So it's just kind of funny how, I just always kind of have been,
okay, doing things a little differently.
Doing things a little differently.
Yeah.
And being okay with it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, because of my faith, I have to say I answer to the Lord on how I raise my kids. We're just going to do our best. That's all we can do and hold to what we feel we're being asked to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And so what do you feel like some benefits were? We've talked a lot about some of the struggles and the hard things about restricting your kids from social media, but can you tell us what benefits you think they received from that experience?
I think some of the benefits were not seeing like kids at a birthday and they weren't there, or not like being a part of being left out of certain social events. I know for me, that's a benefit too. Like not being me too. When I know that everybody's there and I'm not there, that hurts. And that makes you feel like, what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I included? I think that was super beneficial for my kids to not constantly see, oh, I'm not a part of that. Oh, I'm not a part of that. I think is a huge benefit. I think at least protecting them from all the messages.
Yes.
I think was really helpful. But like I said, because we didn't navigate that space well, I will say there's been some challenges with that. Post 18 of when they had access, it's taken them down some difficult journeys. But I will say I think there's something too that they were protected from that when they were younger. So we've
Yeah,
had to walk some tough
absolutely.
journeys post, but if they had, I don't know, I think if they had been exposed to a lot of that stuff younger, I wonder where they would be at today or how they would be managing
Exactly.
that even today. So
Right.
I do feel grateful that they were protected from some aspects, not all, because we are not a device free family. We do have devices, so they still have been exposed to things. We still have walked through
Mhm.
things that we've
Right.
had to learn from and grow from. But they weren't. It wasn't incessant. It wasn't constant. So I still
Right.
feel like there is space. My kids can communicate. They can have conversations. They can be device free when needed. Um, they can have fun and
Mhm.
enjoy doing a puzzle or a game or different
Hmm.
things. They can function without
Yeah.
the device. And I think that to me is a win.
For sure.
Because
Definitely.
relationality,
Huge win.
communication, all that is huge. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's a win.
Because kids are getting thousands of Snapchat notifications a day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's insane.
Well,
that's
not
insane.
even that. And then also too in Instagram, they have their like personal account and then they have like spam accounts now. So they're just getting absolutely bombarded by tons of notifications on all the platforms that they have.
Yeah, Snapchat is a concern for me, especially if you have a kid. I don't think any kid should be on Snapchat. I really don't, because you cannot control what comes at them, and a lot
Yeah.
of dangerous material comes up on Snapchat. A
Hmm.
lot. Um,
Yes.
and so, and
And
there's
integrates
other
with,
things you have to be safety
I,
wise on Snapchat, because you
Yeah.
can track
yes,
locations, all the things. There's a lot of dangers
Yep.
with Snapchat for children.
agreed.
Absolutely.
So I
We should do
just
an
do
It
not.
episode on
feels
that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know, there's a lot of things to tackle here. So with this podcast, we definitely, the journey to get a phone, right? Like how to get your kids using a phone responsibly and when does that happen?
Yeah.
This whole other thing, this whole other challenge is how to get your kids using social media responsibly. That's more complicated. I agree. I don't think I need my kids ever to be on Snapchat. We have a lot of time to evolve and see what else comes out and what else we have to deal with. Or maybe what legislation will start putting onus on the tech companies to take responsibility for some of the harms that is causing children.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the goal here, I think, for me. And a big thing with this conversation is like, how do we help our kids? Like you said, you may have wanted them, looking back, you may have given them social media a little bit earlier to quell some of that, overdoing it or something when they got it, but I don't know. Like I would have probably done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you stuck strong with it. And I think you mirrored healthy behavior for them. And whatever activity I feel like they're taking with it now, they probably would have done that as a teenager as well. And so I don't know that it would have made a big difference. But yeah, this whole thing is a challenge, and I'm looking forward to continuing to have more conversations about it
Yeah.
with more parents too.
Yeah, I think my goal for my kids is I want them to know they can have healthy lives without social media.
Yes.
You can have healthy
Yes.
friendships, healthy relationships, healthy connections without having to be on social media. It's almost like this. I just want to prove it. I just want to prove like you can.
Same here. Same here. Let's do it.
Do I miss out on things? Yes, I miss out on things. Am I not always in the know? Yes, and I have to own that, and I apologize when needed. But I will.
But that's
always
okay.
Say, that's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not on
It's
social
okay
media,
to
but
not
I have
always
tell
be
you,
in the know.
Yeah.
It's totally
There's
okay.
so much freedom in it. There's so much
Yes.
freedom in it.
Thank
And
you.
I want my kids to know that. They haven't, like I said, I have 3 adult children and 1 non-adult children. My 3 adult children all use it. They all use it. They haven't come to that conclusion yet, but they know that I don't, and they watch how I can still have a very full life without it. And I'm okay. And I'm okay. I'm actually probably a lot better and secure without it than I would be for me. This is for me. What was good for me, than if I would be with it. I think I would really struggle. So,
and you know what that's so beautiful about that, Liz, is when your kids get older and if they decide to have children, you have just gave them an opportunity of what it feels like and know it. they are absolutely capable of not giving their kids social media, and to understand the difference of what that looks like. And they could offer that. They could offer that gift to their kids too. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Liz, for everything.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I'll share
Such
too,
a great talk.
let me share one thing, Liz. So I've set a boundary where I don't connect with my friends, my real life friends on social media. That's separate. Our relationships are private and in person and over text message and phone calls. So I only have our business Instagram, and I don't connect with friends on there because, you know, I did a couple little connections with friends and started immediately feeling left out from things they were doing and kind of feelings that were unnecessary. I didn't need to know all of these things. So
Yeah.
I think that it's 100% possible and almost better to keep personal friendships personal, and then whatever you need to be doing on social media for business or brand awareness separately is okay, and you can have a completely successful situation set up like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. I really do agree.
that. Good. Okay. Well, Liz, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here with us. This was a really interesting conversation. Thank you for opening up about giving your kids social media, and thank you for opening up about not giving your kids social media
Yes.
until they were adults and how that experience was for you. I think that is not the norm. And I think that a lot of parents will be really interested in hearing about your experience. So again, we appreciate you sharing.
And I do think it will offer some parents hope. And just me hearing about your story gives me hope for my young kids when they get older. And I'm like, yes, me and my husband, we can do this. We can do this.
You can. It's a good team effort.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
We'll
for
be a
having
team.
me. I enjoyed. Yes, that's the key. I always said that's the key. It makes it a lot easier to hold your ground.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And thanks for having me. I appreciate being on your show today.
Of course, Liz.
Great.
Okay, I'm just going to do my little outro. Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode of Scrolling to Death. Please give us a follow so you get an alert when we have a new episode come out. And we will catch you next time. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.